Hello, everyone. Here we are in week 4. We're going to be done with 1/4 of the semester at the end of this week. So, something really important I want you all to do here by the end of the week is to treat yourself, and like Parks and Rec style, if you want to follow me there. But at the end of this week, we're going to hit temperatures around 50 degrees. I want you to go outside and I want you to enjoy that for several reasons. And most of which just have to do with we're probably exhausted at this point. And we're a month into the semester. It's been cold, it's been rainy, it's been dark, it's been snowing. We're like all the big work is starting to pile up. So do yourselves a favor, plan carefully, and get outside and enjoy a little bit of the weather. Sunshine's important, right? We hear this all of our lives. Uh, Number two, the other thing I need to get out of the way is I'm going to grab my cat and I'm going to shove him in the camera because I've tried to record this video 8 times now and he keeps jumping up in front of me. And I can't lock him in a room because he freaks out. So hopefully just by putting him in the onus of the video, we'll have this done with. Wow. All right. This is my cat, Jeff. All right, that was great, wasn't it? All right, back to class. So if you have not done so already, please check the grade book for your week 2 discussion grades. Put in grades for those, and then if you go into the grade book, you can actually find a little bit of feedback for those things too. I would show you how to do it here in the video, but my screen shows everybody, and university rules sort of prohibit me from showing you everyone else's grades. Suffice to say, if you go to the grade book, look at that particular grade, it'll have a little bit of some window or a box or a square next to it that says click here, or here's some feedback available for you. And there goes my cat again. But we're going to keep going because I want to get this posted tonight, and he'll be fine in the background there. And then this week I'll be posting feedback for your video posts, so we can start working on there. And these two things, both the writing and the video, are important because a lot of you are going to end up doing video recording, video job interviews, video chat for your future careers. You're certainly going to be writing a lot, and the better I can get you at these two things before you leave this class, the more likely you are to get a job, because you might be interviewed in these manners, more likely you are to get a promotion, to get raises. So we're going to keep trying and working on it, and things aren't bad right now. It's just we can get a little bit better. So this week we hit up impression management. This is a pretty fun week for me. I think it's a really interesting sort of thing we can work with. And it's great readings, though it does look like a lot initially. So let's go to the first one I think I'd like you to read. And this is the Ellison reading. It's Managing Impressions Online, Self-Preservation Process, and the Online Dating Environment. Great title. When you pull it open, I'm sure some of your eyes bugged out of your head, and go away, cat. Some of your eyes bugged out of your head, and you saw 28 pages. And that's a lot. I get it, right? I'm going to reduce that for you really quickly. First thing you should notice right away is it's 8 pages of citations and appendices at the end. So you don't have to worry about those. It's things you don't need to look at. It's not uncommon in this type of writing, especially in qualitative, which was what they're doing here. Qualitative is a way of measuring things by gathering evidence from participants and then going through that evidence and pulling out key phrases and ideas based on your research questions. Well, let's take a look at this, and I'll show you what I do want you to look at and what I think you can skip over a little bit. Of course, you should read the short little abstract. It tells you everything that's going on there. Look at the introduction carefully, sets up the paper, gives you the thesis here at the end of it. This article focuses on the ways in which CMC interactants manage their online self-presentation and contributes to our knowledge of these processes by examining these issues in the naturalistic context of online dating, using qualitative data gathered from in-depth interviews with online dating participants. So right there, I think it's an interesting article just based on where they're setting things up. The literature review isn't the most important thing. However, go through, look at the key concepts. Something might pop up in the quiz. I want you to be ready for it. Where we really get into interesting things here is where it says self-presentation and self-disclosure in online and offline context. Now we get into the juicy good stuff. You're going to find some fun things in there. Keep on scrolling down here. credibility assessment and demonstration and online presentation. It's not as dense as what that particular heading sounds. It's just talking about people misrepresenting themselves. And certainly online dating has a lot of that going on. And even in person dating, we see that from time to time where people lie about age, height, weight, uh, and all other things that you could possibly bring up. I'm not going to go too far down that rabbit hole because we get into weird discussions that way. But people misrepresent themselves online, and it is a problem because sooner or later there's the possibility of this catching up with them. Certainly, some of you are familiar with the television show Catfish, where the show is all about finding people that are misrepresenting themselves, getting caught up in this gigantic lie that they weave that sometimes they even begin to believe. So it's not just the intention of trying to misrepresent yourselves. Sometimes it just happens as a part of the overall dialogue. Let's move on down through here. Here's where we can skim just a little bit. Like when you get to the method, this is not the most important part for you. Okay? Now, any of you that want to go on, do graduate work, or you want to do research of this nature, look closely at the method section because you're going to find some things that you may want to emulate later on or perhaps very soon. But for our purposes right here, it's not going to do a lot for you. It's not something you're even going to cite on the forums. In particular, like the data collection, I understand where the data came from, but you don't need to know a ton about it. Certainly the data analysis does not help you, so we're getting rid of pages right here. But pick things back up when you get to the findings, because this is where you might be able to pull some stuff in for our discussion questions. We're talking about the importance of small cues, what little nuances that people discuss, people display when we're talking with them online and in person. So there's some great things there. Balancing accuracy and desirability in self-presentation. I think you'll find this a very interesting section based solely on the fact that you're young people that probably go on a lot more dates than I do as a middle-aged, almost middle-aged married man, right? But I remember these times back when I was in college, and entertaining things that you can look at and sort of connect to your own lives. Let's see. So we move down through here. Again, some really interesting things. The idea of the foggy mirror might be worth looking at for some of you. Might even be something you want to use for your case study papers that we're going to start working on next week, which again I'll cover more in depthly again next week. Establishing credibility, and we talk about credibility in several different communication concepts and classes, and it's one of those things that sort of permeates everything we do in communication. Credibility builds trustworthiness, it builds character, it builds kindness. Like how much do people have our best interests in mind? And to jump away from online impression management and do just in-person impression management. And we had 2 presidential candidates on campus the other day, and they're just going about it with one another and then against the other party, trying to establish credibility, trying to show you that they have the most character and competence, the most overall ethos or credibility, as we say, to do the most difficult job that we have in our country. And this gets pretty down close to the end of it. Like the discussion just runs through and brings everything together. It's a solid section to look at. You don't have to know everything dealing with the theoretical implications of this particular paper. So there's a section you can skim over, but do look at it, read the first and last line of each paragraph so you get the idea of that the thesis of each paragraph. And then running down to the practical implications, which again might be something you can look at for your case study, where it shows what suggestions they have for people in these circumstances or people doing studies like this again. And that's going to be part of what you're going to be doing in your case study anyway, is making suggestions on how to improve situations. The limitations is not something you need to look at. Basically, it says why they chose the people they chose, what limitations they have collecting their data, and why that's both a good and a bad thing. Not something you'll be quoting. So there's a paragraph, there's a whole page there at the end that you don't need to worry about. So once we go through and even things out, it ends up being more like 15 pages instead of 28. So I hope you'll take the time to really pour into that. But this article leads really nicely into the second article, which is Article 3. about context collapse. And I really want you to be intimately familiar with this particular term because we see it all the time. We just don't have the academic vernacular to really talk about it. And that's what I'm having you do on the forums this week. So after you've got the idea of what impression management is, does, how it affects people, what we can do about it, then I want you to go and look at this context collapse article and really pour through this. This is a shorter article, 11 pages, and I believe the first page is just a title page, so you don't have to worry about that. If we go all the way down to the end, there's a page or two worth of acknowledgments and references. So really you only end up reading 8 pages, and I'm going to leave most of this to you. I don't want to go through it too much and spoil things. Suffice to say, you'll find some great vocabulary in here. And take careful notes when you do this one. Not just for the quiz, but because I really do think that this is something that a lot of you will end up using in your case study papers just 6 days from today when you start working on those. And you'll save yourself some time if you've got great data collected from this particular article. And then finally, we've got one chapter out of the Schmidt and Cohen book. I've already forgotten the exact chapter title, so let me look that up really quickly. I apologize. The Future of Identity, Citizenship, and Reporting. And much like the first chapter in the book, there's some weird dystopianness to it where sometimes they're hopeful, but oftentimes they talk about what could possibly go wrong, and don't give us the clearest indication of how we could avoid these things, which is where I think that first article comes back to again. So you might be able to find some way to bring those two articles together and say, even though Schmidt and Cohen say this, Ellison and her team have these other ideas on how we can fix these particular issues. In any case, I'm going to leave you to it. We'll see you in the discussion forums here. Remember your initial post is due Wednesday by 9, then your follow-up post by Sunday. Be sure you're responding to your facilitators. I really liked to see how dense the discussions were this last week. It's fantastic. Anytime we go beyond just a simple 2 posts in each discussion, any discussion thread, we're doing a good job with each other, I think. So please keep up the good work. Keep writing things down. Next week we'll be working on a paper. There won't be any quiz. There won't be any discussion. But for this week, get your discussion post done. Please don't forget your quiz. And if you need anything, get in touch with me. I'll shoot you an email back, or we can set up a Skype appointment. Thanks, folks.